Hello, I'm Keith R.A. DeCandido, and welcome to part 3 of this week's special 3-part KRAD COVID reading, in which I am reading 30, my first and so far only thriller novella, which I am reading in 3 parts. This is part 3. It was part of the viral series of 4 interconnected thrillers, conceived by Savile and written by myself, as well as Jordan Ellinger and Jason Fisher and Alex Black. And unfortunately, the viral ebooks, we did these all as ebooks and they're not really available anymore. I'm not sure where the other 3 are available. You can find mine in Without a License, which is my short story collection. And here is part 3. Remember, if you haven't listened to parts 1 and 2, which went live on Monday and Wednesday, you should probably do that first. Anyway, here's part 3. The next 2 hours were among the most grueling of Joe Lombardo's life. Every time someone walked into the dim sum place, he flinched. Every noise was cause for jumping half out of his seat. Where's the next assassin going to come from? His left hand wasn't badly burned, but it stung like crazy, to the point where flexing it hurt. Luckily, he was right-handed, but eating proved a challenge, since operating a knife and fork for the French toast proved an annoying challenge. By the time 10 o'clock rolled around, he was on his 5th coffee and was practically vibrating from the combination of nerves and caffeine. He had spent that time convincing himself that using his card would be a terrible idea. When the check came, he stuffed a few paper napkins into the padded folder to make it look like there were a wad of bills inside, and simply walked out the door. The Luger felt heavy on the right side of his coat as he exited, heading back down Canal Street to East Broadway, past Seward Park to the library on the other side of it. There was a queue of people outside waiting to get in, and just as Joe joined the throng, the front door opened from the inside, and a smiling, middle-aged African-American woman said, "Come on in, folks." Joe went straight for the computers, which were already turned on and showing a Windows desktop image with the New York Public Library logo and a picture of one of those lions that sat in front of the main building on 5th Avenue and 42nd Street. He also noticed a set of headphones next to the monitor. He double-clicked on the icon for the internet browser and was about to type in the domain name for the webmail version of his email, and then hesitated. If I didn't want to use my ATM, do I really want to log into my email? The address is pretty publicly known. If these guys can hire assassins and snipers, they can probably trace the IP address of where I log on. He closed the browser by clicking on the X in the upper right-hand corner. And then he saw the Skype icon on the monitor. Smiling, he put the headphones on, plugged them into the jack on the front of the CPU, and double-clicked on that icon. He first got the Skype account when a podcast asked to interview him, and it shortly thereafter proved a useful way of staying in touch with the listen. The account wasn't linked to an email address or phone number. He never even got around to establishing an icon, traditionally a picture of oneself. It was just the generic default icon. If someone dug deep enough, they might be able to find that account, but he doubted that anyone who'd only even been looking for him for the past 24 hours would even know it existed. So he felt safe logging in. A perfectly good idea right up until it asked for his password. His laptop signed him in automatically, and it had been almost 2 years since he last logged on manually when he got the current laptop. Sweet Christ, what the hell did I use for my password? He tried his email password, and his password that he used for the Daily News web server, neither of which worked. That was when he remembered that he never finished the damn op-ed piece. Ed must be spitting nails. There were probably half a dozen voicemails piling up from him alone. Voicemail! It finally hit him. He used the same password for Skype that he used to access his previous phone's voicemail. His current phone didn't require a password. After entering 2246, a number that had absolutely no significance in his life, which was why he chose it, in the password field, he was logged into Skype. Please let her be home. Please let her be home. Sure enough, Alyssa Albanese was among the names listed among his very few contacts who was online. He clicked on her name and then typed in the chat field. The pain in his left hand had subsided to an ache, and he was able to push past it in order to touch type. "I need to talk to you now. Can you vid chat?" As he typed, he noticed that the question from the last chat about why she went to Iraq after he came home from there to be with her was still in the window, unanswered. It seemed like an eternity later, though the clock in the lower right-hand corner of the monitor insisted it was only a minute, that she responded. "Is it about the CIA thing?" "Kinda? I'm at a library, so I can't do voice, but I need to see and hear you. I've got headphones." A long pause. "Okay. I'm betting there's a story there." A window came up offering a video chat, and Joe accepted. Alyssa's slightly pixelated face appeared once again, but this time her hair was tied in a bun, she was wearing a plain black t-shirt and cargo pants, and looked haggard and exhausted. The bags under her eyes had bags under them. "Well," her voice said into his headphones, "you look like hammered shit." "You don't know the half of it." And then, furiously touch-typing, he spelled out everything that had happened to him after their last conversation. "Jesus, Joe. You walked out of a restaurant without paying your check? That's so I don't know what." Joe rolled his eyes. He typed, "Seriously? That's what you're taking away from this? I was almost killed." "Right, I know, I'm sorry." She waved an arm back and forth. "It's just so... I mean, I knew it was big, but... Jesus!" I know. I don't know what to do or who to trust. I only got in touch with you because my Skype account isn't exactly common knowledge." She smirked. "Bet you've never been more grateful to forget to charge your phone, huh?" Something like that. There was an interminable pause before he typed, "What do you think I should do?" "What is it you want, Joe? I mean, what do you want to get out of this?" "Right now, I'd settle for seeing tomorrow's sunrise." "Oh, okay, fine, but, well, what's the upside for you here? You can't write this story." "I don't know, given what they're going through to cover it up, writing it may be my only key to survival." Alyssa leaned forward in her chair, making it look as if she was going to come through the monitor. Joe actually flinched. "Don't you dare, Joe. Do you know how much time I waste here trying to convince parents to let their kids be inoculated? And how many of them still don't do it after I talk to them till I'm blue in the face?" Joe found he couldn't resist. "Well, to be fair, I never listened to you either. Very funny. And start now. Is getting another fucking Pulitzer so goddamn important that you just throw everything else away?" Angry, Joe started typing as soon as she said Pulitzer. "I could give a shit about awards right now, Alyssa. I'm trying to stay the fuck alive." It was even almost true, though he had to admit that one of the things that made this story wasn't so attractive was the awards potential. "All right, fine. Maybe I'm being a little unfair." "A little? Joe, damn it, this is important. So's my..." He stopped typing when he noticed an Asian man walk in wearing a shiny new Yankees windbreaker. The same windbreaker that he saw in the lobby of his building and again on Pitt Street. Erasing what he'd typed, he replaced it with, "Gotta go. One of the guys after me is in the library." "Oh, no. No, you don't, Joe. No, come on, you can't..." Whatever Joe couldn't do was lost as he hit the red phone icon that hung up the call. Pausing only long enough to shut the computer down, Joe moved toward the back of the library. Shiny Jacket hadn't seen him yet, and it wouldn't do to draw attention to himself. Snaking his way between several bookcases, he worked his way around to the exit, thinking, "I haven't got a question to the answer to that question I asked Alyssa. Maybe I don't even want to know." He looked at the guard, there to inspect packages, of which Joe had none. Thank Christ they don't check people's pockets. Don't think the Luger would go over too well. As he exited onto East Broadway, he contemplated the efficacy of losing himself in Seward Park. Just as he rejected the notion as silly, a short, bald African-American man wearing a beige trench coat over a navy blue suit approached him. He was wearing mirror shades of the same brand as that of those worn by Joe's would-be assassin back at the apartment, and sported a Van Dyke. "Excuse me, Mr. Lombardo, but do you think we could go somewhere and talk? I'll buy you a cup of coffee." Joe tensed up, hands raised upward into a defensive posture. The short man regarded him with amusement. "Really, Mr. Lombardo, in the privacy of your own apartment is one thing, but we're in public now. Prolonged hand-to-hand combat would only draw attention." Grinning, Joe said, "You say that like it's a bad thing. First of all, I'm a reporter. Drawing attention to things is what they pay me for. Secondly, who needs prolonged hand-to-hand combat? I've got a Luger in my pocket." The man shook his head. "And here I thought you were merely glad to see me. At least now I know where Mr. Kornetsky's weapon got to." With a sigh, the man held out a hand. "You may call me Agent Johnson." Pointedly not accepting the handshake, Joe said, "I'm guessing you're saying I may call you that because it's not your real name, which is smart, since you're in violation of the agency's charter by operating domestically." Johnson kept holding out the handout. "I'm not operating at all, Mr. Lombardo. I'm just offering to buy you coffee." For a moment, Joe seriously considered the possibility of really shooting Johnson in the face. It was blindingly obvious that he was the point guy for the CIA on this. But he was also offering to take him to have coffee in a public place. "So now you want to talk?" "Yes, because actions haven't been working so hot for you." Johnson sighed. "Look, today has hardly gone according to plan for either of us. So let's sit down and see what we can work out." All at once, Joe felt the fatigue slam down on him. He'd been going on adrenaline and fear for several hours now, and that would only go on so long before he'd crash. The banana French toast and coffee had forestalled his collapse, but it really only was a matter of time. And and then the guy in the Yankees jacket, or Johnson here, or one of their other guys, would take care of him. And if things went sideways, he still had the Luger. Fine, Agent Johnson. Let's have us some coffee. Agent Malik Canisius, codenamed Agent Johnson, had been having a good day right up until Kornetsky told him he couldn't find Rogova's flash drive. It had all started when Sandoval called Malik into his office. "We got us a situation. Rogova's gone batshit." Malik sat down in Sandoval's guest chair, trying not to be nauseated by the miasma of cheap cigars that always hung around the older man. What does batshit mean in this context exactly? He's gone whistleblower. He's up in New York going to talk to a reporter. Your job is to keep that from happening. Take care of him. At that, Malik winced. He hated vague instructions because they usually were for ops that needed to be wholly deniable. Take care of him how? How do you think, dumbass? Sandoval reached into his drawer and pulled out an antacid, popped it into his mouth, and washed it down with cold coffee. Hire some local talent. Make it look natural. Get back the flash drive he brought with to give whichever reporter he's going to see. Even money it's that Lombardo asshole he fed shit to in the 90s. Joan already emailed you everything you need. Nodding, Malik got to his feet and straightened his tie. As he turned to leave, Sandoval added, "Oh, and we've got, no budget for this, so keep the team to 2 or 3, okay?" Malik just shook his head as he left. Within 24 hours, he was in New York with 3 freelancers, who were the best he could get for the money he had. Kornetsky, who would stage the scene and make it look natural. Opper, the sniper, who was there to back up Kornetsky if things went bad. And Shu, a surveillance guy. Initially, everything went according to plan. Kornetsky took care of Rogova. It would look like a heart attack if there was any kind of investigation, especially given that the analyst was staying in a flea bag so crummy that they wouldn't even notice the smell of a dead body. Opper was on a roof across the street. Shu was walking up and down 23rd Street, and Malik was in a company car parked 2 blocks away. Ideally, he'd have a tricked-out van for an op like this, but this was off the books, and on the cheap, so a Lincoln Continental had to do. Then Kornetsky's voice sounded in Malik's ear with the fateful words, "Boss, I can't find the flash drive." This was very bad. "Check again." "I've checked 3 times. We..." From his post on the street, Shu interjected. Kornetsky, get out. Someone's approaching. Agent Johnson, check your phone." Pulling out his smartphone, Malik saw that Shu had sent him an image. A grainy photograph that nonetheless looked very much like the picture in Joseph Lombardo's file. "The reporter." After Lombardo found the body, Shu said, "He's calling 911. "Fuck," Opper said. "It's fine," Kornetsky said. "The local yokels will call it a heart attack." Malik shook his head. "Yes, and now we know where the flash drive wound up. Everyone back in the car, please. We're about to set up Lombardo." They all got back to the Continental right around the time that the first blue and white responded to Lombardo's call. Malik told everyone to read the dossier on Lombardo in their tablets while he drove in silence to the Lower East Side. By morning, they were as ready as they could be. Kornetsky was waiting for Lombardo to come home, and Shu was in the lobby. Opper, though, had returned to the Lincoln. "Only place I've got a shot on in his place is the Williamsburg Bridge. Mind you, it would be a perfect shot, but no," Malik snapped. "Calm down, Johnson. I know that's too public. Kornetsky will take care of him." Opper's prediction had proven optimistic, as Malik heard a lot of cries of pain that all sounded like Kornetsky rather than Lombardo. After another moment, "Target gone." "Kornetsky?" A long pause. "Kornetsky!" Malik slammed the steering wheel with a fist. "Damn it!" He took a breath. "Shu, find him. Opper, you go too." Climbing out of the Lincoln, Malik locked it as soon as Opper was out, the case with his rifle in his hand. Malik went into the lobby. The doorman tried to stop him, but Malik flashed his badge quickly, said, "Federal agent," and went to the elevator. Upon arriving at the 21st floor, he saw that Lombardo's door was wide open. Pulling out his agency-issued Beretta, he went in with weapon raised before quickly seeing the kitchen, dining room, living room space that took up the front part of the apartment was clear, but for Kornetsky in his silly disguise writhing on the floor, clutching one leg and bleeding from head wounds. "What happened?" "Kicked." Kornetsky seemed to be fading in and out. Rubbing the bridge of his nose between 2 fingers, Malik asked, "Did you even read the dossier, Kornetsky? It said right there that Lombardo's a black bill." He threw up his hands, then put a finger to his ear. "Shu, Opper, do either of you have..." "Got him," Shu said. "He's going up pit, looking at phone booths for some reason." Malik nodded. That made sense if he was trying to stay under the radar. The longer this went on, the harder things got. Ops happened domestically all the time, for all that they were not allowed, but they were only successful When they were quick and efficient, this particular rob was rapidly becoming less of both. Shu continued, I've got Opera heading up to a short rooftop to set up. Lombardo's working his way in that direction. Good. Sniper shot in the middle of a Manhattan street wasn't ideal, but Lombardo had spent the early days of his career in war zones. Those kinds of journalists made enemies. They'd be able to cook something up for NYPD if needs be, allow them to close the case with a minimum of fuss and panic. Malik went back downstairs. As soon as the elevator deposited him on the ground floor, he said to the doorman, I need you to call 911. There's an injured man in 21F. It looks as if Mr. Lombardo had a problem. Okay. Ivan squinted. I'm sorry, I have to leave. Malik exited, ignoring the continued pleas of the doorman. Kornetsky may not have read dossiers, but he knew how to clam up. He'd even serve time if he had to. It wouldn't have been the first time, and they'd be able to pull strings, so it was only a couple of months. As Malik walked back out into the cool air of the New York morning, Opera's voice sounded in his ear. Set. Just waiting on a clear shot. A second later. There he is. Take the shot, please. Malik tried and failed to hide the urgency in his voice as he got into the Lincoln. His laptop was still in the passenger seat. It was connected via secure modem to a CIA satellite that fed him all kinds of information. At present, it was seeking out uses of any of Lombardo's credit or debit cards, or a ping on his cell phone. Thus far, all he'd gotten was Lombardo's payment for the cab down from the hotel. The reporter was keeping his phone off. Fuck! Opera's exclamation nearly blew out Malik's eardrum. What happened? Son of a bitch stumbled right when I threw my shot. Damn it! Can you get another? Before Malik could finish the question, Shu said, he's running. And we've got another problem. Cops at 12 o'clock. Malik winced, then grabbed the laptop, calling up a map of the area. His heart sank when he saw that Opera was set up all of a block from the 7th Precinct. Shu, go after the target. Opera, are there any witnesses? No, but I got cops coming right at me. I ain't got time to clean up. For a few moments, Malik only heard Opera's footsteps and labored breathing as he ran. Then, distantly, came the word he really didn't want to hear. Freeze! Then Opera's channel went blank, so the sniper had trashed the earbud as he was supposed to. Shu, please tell me that you have eyes on Lombardo. Not yet. Malik ground his teeth in frustration. This was now officially a disaster. For the next several hours, Shu and Malik both searched the area, expanding their search radius and getting more and more frustrated. Malik stared at his laptop in vain for a sign of a credit or debit card or of his cell phone pinging. He expanded the search parameters to cover him logging into his email, the Daily News website, or his Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, or Skype account. The latter two were long shots, as Lombardo hadn't used MySpace in years, then who had, and his Skype use was sporadic. Malik also had made some phone calls to get Opera and Kornetsky taken care of, though it wouldn't be easy. At 9:32, Sandoval called. With the utmost reluctance, he answered it, only because letting it go to voicemail would result in an ass-chewing of legendary proportions. What the fucking fuck? That made Malik wince. Sandoval only used profanity when he was unhappy. Things have gone a trifle. No, asshole, this is not a fucking trifle. This is a clusterfuck of epic fucking proportions. We're gonna have to burn Opera. No fucking loss if you ask me. Why the fuck you sign up his pathetic ass? Through clenched teeth, Malik said, you said I had no budget, remember? Ain't that biting us on the ass? Sandoval sighed. Alright, fine, look. I'm getting shit from up on high, and it hasn't even been 2 hours. Pull the plug on the op. Sir, Lombardo has the flash drive. A pause. Alright, keep trying to locate him, and then talk to him. See if he'll give it up willingly. Malik let out a muffled snort of skepticism, but said nothing. Sandoval continued. But from here on, it's just talking. We'll both be up on charges otherwise. May happen anyhow. McIntyre's shitting bricks. Understood. At 10:07, Malik hit pay dirt, as Lombardo's Skype account was accessed. Pulling the Lincoln over in front of a fire hydrant on Allen Street, he grabbed the laptop. Shu, the target is on a computer near Seward Park. It's not his laptop's IP. He called up a map. There's a library branch at the east end of the park. He's probably on one of the computers there. On it. I can be there in 3 minutes. Malik nodded, even though Shu couldn't see that, put the laptop back on the passenger seat, and pulled into traffic, and worked his way down to the Seward Park Library. I think he made me. He's moving away. Let him go. Malik was tired of playing cat and mouse, and this op was now officially more trouble than it was worth. He found a place to park on the south side of East Broadway that had metered parking. Sticking his government credentials on the dashboard to forestall any tickets, he then crossed the street and walked toward the front entrance just as a very harried-looking Joe Lombardo walked out. This was Malik's first look at Lombardo in person, and it wasn't a pretty picture. His brown eyes were bloodshot, his receding brown hair was a mess of disorganized curls, and his walking was very unsteady. It was no wonder he'd stumbled when Opera tried to shoot him. Malik walked up to the reporter as he stepped onto the sidewalk. "Excuse me, Mr. Lombardo, but you think we can go somewhere and talk? I'll buy you a cup of coffee." Joe gulped down the espresso as if he'd never had any before. Never mind that it was something like his fifth. He and Agent Johnson were seated at a high-end coffee place on Essex Street, one of those places that everyone told him he had to go to when he moved down to the Lower East Side and had never actually gotten around to trying. The CIA agent had already paid for both drinks. "So, agent not really named Johnson, you've already tried to poison me and shoot me. What's next?" "Nothing, Mr. Lombardo." The agent sipped a cup of jasmine tea. "Agent Rogova sent you a flash drive, did he not?" Joe just sipped his espresso. Johnson smirked. "Of course. Either way, I am returning to Washington. The man who tried to poison you is in the hospital. The man who tried to shoot you is under arrest. This operation has provided a casualty rate far in excess of what is acceptable for a mission of this type." "So that's just it? 2 shots and you give up?" Honestly, giving up after 1 would have been more prudent. As you said, the CIA is forbidden from operating domestically, and those who do tend to pay a dear price. Joe grinned. "Like going to the hospital and being put under arrest." "Touche." The agent reached into the inner pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a business card, handing it to Joe. He took it and saw that it only had a phone number with a 202 area code written on the back on an otherwise blank white card. After sipping the last of his tea, Johnson said, "We're fighting for freedom, Mr. Lombardo, so you're free to do whatever you wish with the information on the flash drive that Agent Rogova sent you." Another smirk. "If he sent it to you. You may call me at that number if you wish to talk further." With that, Johnson left. Joe sat and sipped more espresso, wondering if it was truly over or not. It turned out not to be. As soon as he got home, he was greeted by detectives from the 7th Precinct who had questions about his break-in, especially regarding why he wasn't home. He said he panicked and ran, and it took him a while to get his head together and come home. Making up for that disappearance, he gave a statement in which he, for the second time in 24 hours, lied to the police. After telling the detectives that he had no idea why this guy broke into his apartment and attacked him, they all left. For several seconds, Joe just stood and stared at his apartment. There was dust all over everything from the cops' attempts to lift fingerprints. His window sill was a shattered mess. There was blood on the dining room floor and the counter, and the dining room table and chairs were on their sides or turned over. Then, finally, he plugged his phone in. After that, he grabbed his laptop, currently on the dining room floor, and placed it on the kitchen counter. Flipping it open, he slid the CD tray out, then reached into his coat pocket. He found the Luger and took that out and stared at it for several seconds. "Gonna need to get rid of that thing." Unwilling to think about that, he put the weapon down on the counter and reached into the other pocket, which had the flash drive and the decryption CD, as well as Agent Johnson's minimalist business card. Setting the card aside next to the laptop, he plugged the drive into a USB port and placed the disc in the tray and closed it. The CD ran automatically and put up a status box that showed the decryption process was 0% complete, with 7 hours remaining. After 2 seconds, it was 1% complete, with 6 hours and 58 seconds remaining. Joe let out a very long breath, and finally, for the first time since he went out to Nick's hotel room, he shrugged out of his leather coat and tossed it onto the couch. He stared at his phone, plugged into the charger and sitting on the end table in the living room. The battery was up to 2%. He could try turning it on, but he decided that nobody could possibly have a phone message for him that was more important than the very long nap he was about to take. So he went into the bathroom and fell face first onto the bed at a 45-degree angle and immediately fell asleep. By the time he woke up again, it was dark out. Drool fell from the corner of his mouth to the comforter. He rolled off the bed, clambered into an upright position, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, and then stretched, his muscles and bones popping and crunching. Taking a deep breath, he instantly regretted it. How long have I been wearing these clothes anyhow? That he couldn't come up with an answer to that question off the top of his head told him all he needed to know. Before he did anything else, he was peeling off his clothes and showering. A good 15 minutes later, he exited the shower, refreshed, if pruny, and walked out into the living room while toweling off. He stood in front of the laptop and saw that the decryption was 98% done. Nodding at the laptop, he went back to the bedroom and threw on a t-shirt and sweats. As he walked back to the counter, he noted that the phone was fully charged, but he wasn't ready to turn it on just yet. So much relied on what was on that flash drive. With a ding, the laptop announced that the decryption was done. Sitting on a stool next to the counter, Joe clicked on the OK tab. Then dozens of PDFs and graphics files all started to open on his screen. His jaw slowly fell further and further open as he continued to read. Nick had mentioned an operation in Pakistan, and here were the details, involving a clinic in a small town near where a terrorist was believed to be hiding. Another in Kenya, which had a far less noble goal than tracking an enemy of the U.S. A false vaccine being developed for another operation, and on and on and on. It was too much. He didn't know where to start. He didn't know what to do. But this is something that can make your career. You can't write this story, so you're free to do whatever you wish. Suddenly, his dream of the other night came back to him. Winning another Pulitzer, proving that he wasn't just a flash in the pan with the Kosovo story. And this would absolutely do it. This would shatter the CIA, displacing the rock that exposed the ants underneath to the sun and forcing them to run and hide. Then he thought about the kids Alyssa was talking about. How many kids would die because their parents wouldn't let them get immunizations after his story proved that the Americans were just using doctors for their own vicious ends? Hell, one of the files he had showed was that they were co-opting a Médecins Sans Frontières station. He could run the story. He could bury the story. Looking to the side of the laptop, his eyes fell on the plain white card with the 202 phone number on it. And he smiled. There was a third choice. He'd already lied to the police twice. Why not lie to a CIA agent? Agent Not Johnson didn't need to know that Joe didn't want to run the story. Jumping down from the stool, Joe walked over to the end table. He turned his phone on. After a few seconds, it booted up. Immediately informed him that he had voicemail, that he had 13 text messages, and that he'd missed 9 calls. He ignored them and went to the dialer, entering the number on the card. Agent Johnson, this is Joe Lombardo. I was not expecting to hear from you, Mr. Lombardo. Then you're an even bigger idiot than I thought, Joe said harshly. Look, you know what I have. You know what I can do with it. Yes. So make it worth my while not to do anything with it. How am I supposed to do that? Joe grinned. He wants me to spell it out. Spell it out. With Nick gone, I need a source in the CIA. You just got elected. That seems reasonable. Johnson agreed very quickly, which confirmed what Joe had figured. Johnson was expecting a quid pro quo. Good. I'll be in touch. Don't fuck me on this, Johnson. This flash drive paints a nasty picture. No doubt. Good day, Mr. Lombardo. Johnson ended the call. Joe wasn't sure how long he'd be able to milk this, but he intended to do so for as long as he could. He was going to get scoops up the wazoo. He didn't even bother playing the voicemail or seeing who the texts or missed calls were from, instead just calling in. Caller ID betrayed him. Lombardo, where the fuck have you been? You still owe me a fucking transit story, and you will apologize for dropping that fucking ball, even though I guarantee I am never gonna accept it. Later, Ed, I promise. Don't fucking call me that, and give me one good reason not to fire you, sorry ass. Fire me all you want, but first I need you to tell me what the names of the editors are on the foreign desk. Say what? The foreign desk. He smiled. I think I need to go back to international. And that's the end. By the way, the other files that Joe got refer to Alex Jordan and Jason's stories, which is a deliberate little setup for what they did. Their 3 stories detailed those 3 operations. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. I'm pretty much keeping to the Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, so there'll be a new thing 3 days a week. And check me out online, DeCandido.net, DeCandido.wordpress.com, Patreon.com/KRAD, and all that good stuff. Thank you very much, and please stay safe.